Oshae Brissett, one of the only players remaining on this Boston Celtics championship team that has yet to return, even though the team has an open roster spot. And he spoke out on his free agency decision on his latest vlog. And we're going to be breaking down and discussing, is there a possibility of reunion with Boston here? Or will Oshae Brissett be pursuing a career somewhere else in the NBA? All of that and more on this episode of Celtics Digest. I'm Bruce Velez. You guys have been absolutely fantastic showing your love and showing your support for the channel here. But we did launch something new that I would like to showcase with you guys, which are some channel memberships. That's right. If you want to show more support and get extra additives to show your support to Celtics Digest by getting custom emojis, custom notifications, and even custom videos and stuff preferred and before, sign up to become a member with one of these four tiers to access all the perks. But without further ado, let's dive into the video at hand. Make sure to grab a snack, and we'll be discussing this Oshae Brissett news as he has recently come out and spoken about it on his vlog. So if you guys do not know about Oshae Brissett, don't really know who he is, he obviously was on this championship team with this Boston Celtics squad and played kind of a role in the playoffs here and there. When Porziņģis was down, they utilized Tillman and Brissett here and there in some aspects, and Brissett was utilized in the Pacers series to help out in some aspects, being a small ball five, being a very energetic offensive rebounder, and a guy just giving it his last ditch effort on every single play, which led to winning plays for this Boston Celtics team, leaving it out all on the line. Now, Brissett has his vlog on his YouTube channel, which you can go and check him out at Brizzy TV right here. As you can see, I am subscribed. But he broke down some of his news about free agency in his recent update. We want to look at this tweet here from Daniel Donabedian. I appreciate his work for Celtics stuff that he puts out. And this is where I initially saw it before I watched the vlog where Brizzy broke it down. But basically, Brizzy did not close the door on a Boston reunion, but did talk about how he did enjoy playing in Boston and what it made, obviously, off of his season. He said he grew so much as a player, practicing every single day with the Hall of Famers, and later joked that he didn't play that much because the Celtics had a team of monsters from Space Jam. But if you want to check his video out and kind of get more of an in-depth, understanding of what Oshae Brissett was speaking about and talking about, you guys can go and check out that video. It's around 14, 15 minutes long. But if not, if you want basically the synopsis here, obviously Oshae Brissett is one of those players who has not returned to Boston, and it doesn't look like it's going to be, on the bingo card at this very moment. The Boston Celtics do have one open roster spot, and they've had that roster spot open for a little while at this point. And what I seem to believe and what I think is seemingly true is that once free agency started, Brad Stevens ultimately gave all of these guys the option to come back. He came and said, here you guys go. Here is a veteran minimum contract to every player that was on our team last season, and you ultimately can come back. We initially saw Luke Kornet sign the deal right as free agency dropped, and Neemias Queta sign a couple minutes after. And I think that indication can kind of prove that kind of take because those guys signed immediately. And Luke Kornet, I found out from watching Noah Dalzell's podcast where she broke it down on You Got Boston. If you don't watch that, go check that out. You get some tidbits like this. But Luke Kornet did turn down more money from other teams to come back to Boston on a veteran minimum contract. So something like that is key to know that he did feel comfortable in Boston. Similar with Neemias Queta, he felt that he could grow and stay in Boston. And then we even saw a player in Xavier Tillman who waited a couple of days in free agency to kind of test the market, figure out where he could go, but then ultimately decided to come back on that veteran minimum contract, which was an absolute steal. So ultimately, like I said, I think Oshae Brissett, has that same contract right in front of him. I think that the Boston Celtics have that, veteran minimum contract presented to him. And like he said, the door is not closed on a reunion in Boston. He could go back there if he generally wants to. And he said once they won the championship that next year when they go round again, when they win back to back, he wants them to do a double round. And that was funny, you know what I mean? But obviously, Oshae Brissett wants to grow as a player. He came through the G League, came through Syracuse where I saw him play, which was absolutely fantastic, and has had to find a role in the NBA ever since. started out in the G League with Toronto, moved his way to Indiana, then over to Boston, and now is looking for even a more increased role in the NBA with another squad. The only thing I think necessarily holding that back is the new CBA, the new rules, due to the fact that a lot of teams are in the first apron or in the second apron. They don't have a lot of money to offer these type of contracts or even roster spots to kind of give up to get these type of guys on veteran minimum contracts. So some of these guys that are like fringe contending players have kind of had to take, some pay cuts, or even for guys like Oshae Brissett just don't have, a bunch of contracts presented in front of them. But I do believe that Oshae Brissett will present himself to work for another contract. Do I necessarily believe that it will be with the Boston Celtics? Unfortunately, I don't think so. I think that the Celtics are going to keep their 14 guys the same. Noah Dalzell also confirmed that when she talked to Brad Stevens over at Summer League, that he said that in our conversations kind of talking about Shea Brissett, it kind of seemed like he wasn't going to be returning. So a lot of I kind of get that perspective as well. I understand he's a player who's had to, want to compete and want to grow and try to find minutes, and he could still have that in this rotation, I think, as well. But I think he solidified himself as a player that can make a rotation and can be an impactful piece in a rotation. And I think he can prove that on some other teams. And I don't think that's going to be with the Boston Celtics, but I do wish him the best of luck in all his endeavors because he was a fantastic player for this team. If you want to look at Oshae Brissett's stats, obviously it wasn't the flashiest, wasn't the glammiest player, only averaging 3.7 points, 2.9 rebounds on 44% shooting from the field and 27% shooting from three. But this guy was the perfect role player for a nice swing defender. He ultimately can play this 3, 4, or 5. Small ball 5, getting rebounds, being a force down low in the paint, setting some nice screens, and being a nice vertical lob threat. He can play that 4 as well, just kind of basically doing that, but also stepping up to the 3-point line, guarding some of those guys at the perimeter, and holding his own on the defensive side. And he is a scrappy, tenacious defender. He, like I said, throws his body out on the line, fighting for loose balls, trying to get steals, doing all of the things that you would love to see out of a Boston Celtic and truly the epitome of the Celtics core and culture. And that's why a player like Oshae Brissett, I think, was very valued in the system and was able to grow and play alongside these players. Let's not forget that Oshae Brissett and Lamar Stevens were brought in to kind of play a similar role, and Oshae Brissett kind of blossomed and beat out Lamar Stevens in that role through the regular season to be able to stay with this Celtics team and push for a championship. I also believe that he meshed very well in the locker room. The guys really got along with him, and similar to him, he enjoyed playing with those guys. But like I mentioned, the Celtics having 14 roster spots already, only having one open. They just signed their final two-way contract in Anton Watson. I could see something similar to last season where they leave the last roster spot open, hold these final three two-ways, kind of see how things go. We still have, 2 months till around the start of the season, so some trades could still go down. The Celtics could be, a vital connector in one of those trades. The Celtics could pursue a guy that, gets bought out depending on the restrictions on his contract. The Celtics could go after a guy if he makes under the non-tax mid-level payer exception. Excuse me if I messed that up. But they can go underneath that and get a guy via that. Or, possibly if one of their two-way players does grow or they do suffer an injury throughout the season and they need somebody else, they need to make a trade for somebody else, they have the option to have that flexibility and have that roster spot open. Like I said, I wish the best for Oshae Brissett. Kind of spoke out and kind of told us that it wasn't necessarily going to be looking like a return in Boston. He's looking for more playing time. He's looking for a bigger opportunity. And I think that's something that he's going to find. But let me know how you guys feel about that in the comment section down below. And then lastly, we're going to kind of go and kind of think of some options of where Oshae Brissett could go. Now, I don't necessarily know how many of these teams have open roster spots, have a player to, kind of fill, but Oshae Brissett is a, good quality role player, a guy who can seemingly fit in, like I said, can play the 3, 4, and 5. And I think on a team that, not like Boston, but a team that's in the middle of the pack, or a team that is looking to make a play-in berth or to try to, bring in some attention to their culture. I think Oshae Brissett is an instant plug-and-play guy. You bring him into him, he'll bring the same qualities that he brought in with the Celtics to your new team, and I think that will definitely help. There are some teams in mind that I think he could really, really help and booster, and one of those teams is going to be the Charlotte Hornets. Now, one of the reasons I do say this is due to the fact that the Charlotte Hornets did have Celtics assistant head coach Charles Lee now as their head coach this season. Therefore, I think that some of these ex-Celtics or older Celtics players that, had played in the G League or had played with this team would like to maybe experiment with Charles Lee because they already know his coaching style from being in that system. Also, the Celtics uh, main Celtics, excuse me, head coach, also went to Charlotte as well. Therefore, I think some of those guys that are kind of tweeners or had grown through that G League system might as well follow. And maybe a guy like Brissett could find a role there. I know that they have, some wings. They have Brandon Miller. They have Miles Bridges. But he could kind of play a little bit of a Cody Martin role, I think, for them, being that tweener 3-4 wing. And I think that would be very fantastic for the Hornets. Another team I think that he could kind of fit in would be the Chicago Bulls, depending on how they look to kind of build their roster after moving DeMar DeRozan and still seemingly trying to move Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic. I think if they had some money, I think if they had some roster spots open, he could seemingly go in and fit in there as well and compete for a spot. They're a team that I think should be going towards the bottom, but if they're not going to be going to the bottom and try to compete, Brissett can be a nice player to plug and play and help you bolster your able to be a competitive team. And I think he kind of fits in. DeMar DeRozan's gone. They obviously have Patrick Williams who they re-signed, but he's hasn't blossomed to become, a benefactor X-star player. They obviously just drafted Matthias Buzelis, but they have, a young wing core over there in Chicago. So I think a guy like Oshae Brissett can easily get into that roster and have an option to be able to fit in that roster and play. And then lastly, one more team that I think he could also go fit in is with Utah. I know Utah's a little bit of a young squad. Now you are looking to make some, changes around the edges here, possibly with a Lauri Markkanen trade in the future. But I do believe reuniting with Will Hardy, one of the Celtics' old assistants, even though O'Shea wasn't over here when he was there, you obviously have that Celtic connection, kind of similar play style. I think they could sell him on that. Danny Ainge being the old GM of the Boston Celtics, I think he could also get in some words there. I think it is a good selling point. Maybe O'Shea wouldn't want to play in Utah necessarily, but hey, a job is a job, an option is an option, and getting the opportunity to bolster and try to work for a even bigger contract is what O'Shea realistically wants. He wants to be able to retain in the NBA, stay and make a name for himself, and I do not blame him. Go, you won your championship, go and try to make your best move for yourself. So O'Shea, if you do decide to leave Boston, is a-okay. But if not, if you do come back, we will welcome you with big arms as you are a key piece for that bench unit. And one of those sleeper guys that I really believed in and was very, very happy wanting to see get a role in the playoffs. And I'm very, very happy that he was able to do that with this Celtics team this season. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. How do you guys feel about this Oshae Brissett scenario and situation? Do you guys want him back on the Celtics? Do you think he'll be back on the Celtics? If not, where do you think he will end up? Let us know down below in the comment section. Like I said, we're going to have these weekly live streams back and running up again. Wednesday night, we will be live here with you guys at 6 p.m. once again from 6 to 7. So make sure to tune into that. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to stay up to date on the daily content. And if you want to be a channel member and show some more love and support, we would greatly appreciate it. Without further ado, I'm Bruce Velez. Have a great rest of your day and go Boston Celtics.